The unexpected invitation. Jack Carter leaned back in his worn-out chair, staring out of the small window of his engineering station on Outpost Vega 7. The view outside was breathtaking. A swirl of violet and blue nebulae framed by the cold metallic hull of the station. For most, it would be a dream, but for Jack, it had become routine. Days blurred together with endless repairs, reports, and the hum of machinery. He often joked that the most exciting part of his week was fixing the station's coffee dispenser. But this particular day was different. As Jack finished his lukewarm coffee, a soft chime echoed through the room. He turned toward the desk where a small, glowing orb floated just above the surface. It wasn't his. He hadn't seen anything like it before. It pulsated with a gentle golden light, as if alive, and emitted a faint hum that made his skin tingle. Cautiously, Jack approached the orb. "Is this some kind of prank?" he muttered, half expecting a hidden camera crew to burst in. But the outpost was isolated. He hadn't seen another human in weeks. The orb emitted a low tone, and then, to Jack's shock, a hologram emerged. It was an alien woman, her features delicate yet distinctly otherworldly. Her skin shimmered like polished quartz, and her large, luminous eyes seemed to pierce right through him. She wore intricate ceremonial robes adorned with glowing symbols. "Human Jack Carter," she began, her voice melodic but firm, "your presence is requested at the celestial conclave. The fate of many depends on your attendance." Jack blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Wait a second. Who are you? How do you know my name?" The woman tilted her head, as if puzzled by his reaction. "I am Xenthia, envoy of the Xentherian crown. Your name has been inscribed in the annals of our prophecy. You must come. There is little time." "Prophecy," Jack said, scoffing. "Look, I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just an engineer. No prophecies here." The hologram didn't waver. "The prophecy speaks of a human from the stars who will unite the divided. You are the only one who fits." Jack ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling. "This has to be a mistake. And even if it's not, why would I trust some random floating orb telling me to drop everything and leave?" Xenthia's expression softened. "I understand your hesitation, human. But our world is on the brink of disaster. If you do not come, countless lives will be lost." Before Jack could respond, the orb began to emit a series of beeping sounds. A glowing map appeared, highlighting a distant star system. "Follow these coordinates. A Xentherian vessel awaits your arrival," Xenthia said. "Please, Jack Carter, do not let our plea fall on deaf ears." The hologram vanished, and the orb dimmed. Jack stood frozen, the quiet hum of the station now feeling oppressive. He stared at the map, his mind racing. Prophecy. Unite the divided. It sounded like something straight out of a bad sci-fi drama. Yet there was something about Xenthia's voice, a mix of urgency and sincerity, that made him pause. He could ignore it, go about his mundane routine, and let someone else deal with whatever crisis this was. But deep down, Jack felt a strange pull, a sense that this wasn't a coincidence. "All right," he muttered to himself. "What's the worst that could happen?" Jack packed his essentials and sent a quick message to his superiors, explaining he was investigating an anomaly. He doubted they'd care. It wasn't like he was leaving behind anything critical. The Xentherian coordinates led him to a sleek, silver vessel that dwarfed his shuttle. As he approached, the ship's hangar bay opened with a smooth hiss, and Jack's shuttle was pulled inside. He barely had time to unbuckle before a group of tall, elegant aliens approached him. Their translucent robes flowed like water, and their expressions were unreadable. "Welcome, Jack Carter," one of them said, bowing slightly. "We have awaited your arrival." Jack swallowed hard. "Yeah, about that. I'm still not sure why I'm here." "You will understand soon," the alien replied, gesturing for him to follow. "The ceremony begins shortly." "Ceremony?" Jack asked, his unease growing. "What kind of ceremony?" The alien didn't answer, leading him down a series of gleaming corridors. The ship's interior was a marvel of design. Smooth, organic curves lit by a soft, ambient glow. Jack's curiosity fought with his nerves as he was ushered into a chamber filled with rows of Xentharians, all staring at him with what he could only describe as awe. A large platform stood at the center of the room, adorned with intricate carvings and glowing runes. As Jack was guided to the platform, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into something far bigger than he had imagined. The same voice echoed in his mind. The fate of many depends on your attendance. Jack had no idea what awaited him, but one thing was certain. His mundane life was officially over. Arrival of the ceremony. Jack's shuttle touched down gently within the massive alien vessel, the hum of the engines fading into an eerie silence. The ship's hangar bay was unlike anything he had ever seen, a cavernous space with walls that shimmered like liquid silver. Strange, luminous plants grew in alcoves along the walls, casting soft, pulsating light that made everything feel alive. As the shuttle door hissed open, Jack hesitated, gripping the handle tightly. He wasn't sure what he expected: guards with weapons, an angry mob. Instead, a group of Xentharians approached in perfect formation, their tall, elegant figures cloaked in robes that glowed faintly with shifting patterns. Their faces were calm, but their large, iridescent eyes seemed to study him with intense curiosity. The one in the lead stepped forward and inclined his head slightly. "Welcome, Jack Carter," he said, his voice smooth and melodious. "You honor us with your presence." Jack swallowed hard. Thanks, I guess. Can someone explain what's going on? Why am I here?" The Xentharian ignored the question and gestured toward a corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly, its walls alive with flowing energy. "Please follow me. The celestial conclave awaits." Jack opened his mouth to protest, but decided against it. He wasn't in a position to argue, not when he was surrounded by towering aliens who could probably throw him across the room without breaking a sweat. Reluctantly, he stepped out of the shuttle and followed the group down the glowing corridor. As they walked, Jack's mind raced. The word conclave sounded official, maybe even political. Was he about to meet alien leaders? Negotiators? Was this some kind of intergalactic summit? But then he remembered Arantha's words. "Your name has been inscribed in the annals of our prophecy." The corridor opened into a massive chamber, and Jack stopped in his tracks, his breath catching. The room was a vast amphitheater, its ceiling so high it seemed to vanish into the stars. Thousands of Xentharians filled the tiers, their robes creating a sea of glowing light that shifted like the surface of an ocean. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform adorned with intricate carvings and symbols that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Jack's guide turned to him and gestured toward the platform. "You are to stand there." "Stand there," Jack repeated, frowning. "What for?" "It is the place of honor," the Xentharian said simply. Reluctantly, Jack climbed the steps to the platform, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes on him. His palms were sweaty, and his heart pounded in his chest. He wanted answers, but no one seemed willing to provide them. The room fell silent, the kind of silence that made Jack's skin crawl. From the shadows, a figure emerged, Arantha. Her presence was commanding, her ceremonial robes flowing behind her like liquid gold. She stepped onto the platform and addressed the crowd in a language Jack didn't understand. The words were melodic, almost hypnotic, and the audience responded with a synchronized hum that reverberated through the chamber. Arantha turned to Jack, her expression unreadable. "The time has come," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "You will soon understand your purpose." Before Jack could ask what that purpose was, a deep, resonant gong sounded, shaking the floor beneath his feet. The carvings on the platform flared to life, their glowing symbols spinning and rearranging into patterns that seemed to defy logic. The air grew thick with energy, and Jack felt a strange sensation, as if he were being pulled in multiple directions at once. Then the bride appeared. A grand door at the far end of the chamber slid open, revealing a figure unlike any Jack had ever seen. She was tall, even by Xentherian standards, with a presence that demanded attention. Her skin glowed faintly, shifting between shades of pale blue and silver, and her eyes were like twin galaxies, deep and mesmerizing. Her ceremonial attire was a masterpiece of intricate designs and flowing fabric that seemed to move on its own. Jack's mouth went dry as she approached the platform, her gaze locked onto his. The crowd erupted into a low, melodic chant, the sound vibrating in Jack's chest. He wasn't sure whether he should feel honored or terrified. The bride stopped in front of him, her expression calm but curious. "You are the one," she said, her voice soft, but carrying an undeniable authority. "The one for what?" Jack managed to croak. "To be my mate," she said simply. Jack's brain short-circuited. He blinked, certain he had misheard her. "Wait, hold on a second. Your mate. There has to be some mistake. I didn't sign up for this." Xenthia stepped forward, her tone soothing but firm. "There is no mistake, Jack Carter. You have been chosen by prophecy to unite our people." "Prophecy?" Jack repeated, his voice rising. "What kind of prophecy decides who I marry? I'm just an engineer. I fix machines, not this." The bride tilted her head, her gaze piercing. "Your reluctance is understandable, but this union is necessary. Without it, my people will face destruction." Jack threw up his hands. "How does marrying me solve anything? I'm just a guy from Earth. I don't even know your customs, your language." "You will learn," the bride said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "The bond we form will solidify an alliance that has been fractured for centuries. You are the key." Jack opened his mouth to argue further but stopped. There was something in her eyes, an emotion he couldn't quite place. Was it desperation? Hope? Whatever it was, it silenced him. The crowd's chant grew louder, the energy in the room almost tangible. Jack felt trapped, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He didn't know how or why, but it seemed his life had just taken a turn he could never have predicted. And there was no turning back. The bride revealed. Jack stood frozen on the ceremonial platform, his mind reeling. The words mate and prophecy echoed in his head, each one making less sense than the last. He stared at the bride, tall, elegant, and undeniably alien. Her shimmering skin reflected the soft glow of the chamber's lights, and her flowing ceremonial attire gave her an ethereal presence that was both intimidating and mesmerizing. But Jack's thoughts were far from poetic admiration. How did I end up here? He wondered, his pulse pounding in his ears. Only hours ago, he'd been a simple engineer, fixing coffee dispensers and dreaming of a quiet life. Now, he was apparently at the center of some ancient alien ritual. The bride, Xenthia, studied him with an intensity that made Jack shift uncomfortably. Her glowing eyes seemed to see straight into his soul, as if she were searching for something. "You seem uncertain," Xenthia said, her voice smooth yet tinged with curiosity. Her words carried the kind of calm authority that demanded attention. "Uncertain," Jack blurted, his voice cracking. "I don't even know what's going on. One minute I'm minding my own business, and the next I'm dragged across the galaxy to marry an alien princess." Xenthia's expression didn't waver. If anything, she seemed amused. "Do humans not believe in destiny?" Jack threw up his hands. "Destiny? I believe in fixing things with a wrench and a bit of duct tape. This is... I don't even know what this is." The chamber fell silent, the murmurs of the Xentherian crowd fading into an almost oppressive quiet. Xenthia stepped closer to Jack, her towering figure casting a shadow over him. Her gaze softened, but there was a weight behind her words as she said, "You were chosen for a reason, Jack Carter. Whether you believe in destiny or not, your presence here is no accident." Jack opened his mouth to retort, but Xenthia raised a hand, silencing him. She turned to the gathered crowd and began speaking in her native tongue, a melodic, flowing language that echoed throughout the chamber. The crowd responded with a synchronized hum, their voices blending into a sound that vibrated in Jack's chest. As Xelthia spoke, symbols on the platform lit up, their glowing patterns shifting and rearranging with every word. Jack couldn't understand what was being said, but the energy in the room was palpable. It felt ancient, powerful, and deeply unsettling. When Xelthia finished, she turned back to Jack. The prophecy speaks of a human who will unite the divided. My people stand on the brink of collapse, torn apart by centuries of conflict. Our enemies grow stronger every day, and without this union, we will not survive. Jack frowned. And you think marrying me will fix all of that? I'm not some hero from a storybook. I'm just a guy who knows how to fix machines. Xelthia tilted her head, her gaze unwavering. Perhaps that is precisely why you were chosen. Sometimes, the simplest threads hold the tapestry together. Before Jack could respond, a low rumble shook the chamber. The crowd murmured nervously as the glowing symbols on the platform flared brighter. Jack instinctively stepped back, but Xelthia remained still, her expression calm but alert. From the shadows, a group of Xentharian elders emerged, their robes more elaborate than the others. They carried a small, ornate chest that pulsed with the same golden light as the orb that had summoned Jack. The lead elder approached the platform and knelt before Xelthia, holding the chest out to her. Xelthia took the chest and opened it, revealing a crystalline artifact that seemed to contain a swirling galaxy within. The crowd gasped, their hums turning into a reverent chant. This, Xelthia said, holding the artifact toward Jack, is the heart of Xenthia. It is both a symbol and a bond. By accepting it, you agree to the union and to the responsibilities it entails. Jack stared at the artifact, its swirling light casting shadows across his face. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, and utterly alien. But it also felt heavy with expectation, as if touching it would tie him to something far beyond his understanding. "And if I don't accept?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Xelthia's expression hardened, and the chamber grew deathly silent. "If you refuse, the prophecy will fail. My people will lose hope, and our enemies will see it as a sign of weakness. The consequences will be dire." Jack looked around the room, at the thousands of Xentharians watching him with a mix of hope and desperation. He felt the weight of their gaze, the pressure to be something he didn't believe he could be. "I don't want to be responsible for all this," Jack said, his voice cracking. "I'm just one person." Xelthia stepped closer, her tone softening. "Sometimes one person is all it takes." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Jack looked at the artifact again, his mind racing. He had no idea what he was stepping into, but one thing was clear. If he accepted this, his life would never be the same. The crowd's chant grew louder, the energy in the chamber building to a crescendo. Jack felt his hand move almost on its own, reaching for the artifact. As his fingers brushed against its surface, a surge of energy coursed through him, lighting up the platform and the entire chamber in a brilliant flash. And just like that, Jack's fate was sealed. A test of worthiness. The chamber's brilliance faded, and Jack found himself still holding the crystalline artifact. It felt warm and alive in his hands, pulsing gently as if in sync with his heartbeat. The crowd erupted into cheers, their melodic voices filling the vast space. Xelthia stood beside him, her serene expression hiding whatever thoughts she might have had. Jack, on the other hand, felt like his knees were about to give out. "What just happened?" he whispered, half to himself. "The first step has been taken," Xelthia said, her voice calm. "But there is more to prove." Jack frowned. "More to prove? I just grabbed your glowing space rock. Isn't that enough?" Her lips curved into what might have been a smile. "The artifact recognizes you, but recognition is not enough. You must demonstrate that you are worthy of its power and the responsibilities it bestows." "Of course," Jack muttered. There's always a catch. Before he could ask what worthy meant, the platform beneath him shifted. The intricate carvings rearranged themselves, forming a circular pattern that began to glow brighter. Jack stumbled as the ground beneath him seemed to liquefy, but Xelira steadied him with a firm hand. "Do not resist," she said. "The trials will begin." "Trials," Jack repeated, his voice rising. "What trials?" But Xelira didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back as the light engulfed the platform, swallowing Jack whole. When Jack opened his eyes, he was no longer in the grand chamber. He stood in a vast, barren landscape, the sky a swirling mix of purple and gold. Strange, jagged rocks jutted out of the ground, and the air was thick with an unnatural stillness. It felt like a dream, but the sharp sting of the cool wind on his face told him otherwise. "Where am I?" he muttered, turning in a slow circle. A voice echoed around him. Xelira's, but distant and disembodied. "You stand within the trial grounds, a realm forged by the artifact to test those who seek its blessing. Each trial will challenge a different aspect of your character." "Great," Jack said, rolling his eyes. "Why does everything have to sound like a cryptic fortune cookie?" As if in response, the ground beneath him rumbled. A jagged crevice split open a few feet away, and from it emerged a creature that made Jack's blood run cold. It was massive, at least 8 feet tall, with shimmering black scales and eyes that glowed like molten gold. Its body resembled some nightmarish combination of a panther and a serpent, sleek yet terrifyingly powerful. "First trial. Courage," Xelira's voice announced. "Face your fear." "Face my... Are you kidding me?" Jack shouted, stumbling backward. The creature snarled, baring rows of razor-sharp teeth, and began stalking toward him. Jack's heart pounded as he frantically scanned the ground for anything he could use as a weapon. All he found was a jagged rock, barely the size of his hand. "Oh, fantastic. This'll definitely help." The creature lunged, its massive claws slashing through the air. Jack barely managed to dive out of the way, rolling awkwardly onto the ground. His mind raced. He wasn't a soldier, a hero, or anything remotely equipped for this. He was an engineer, a problem solver. And right now the problem was staying alive. As the creature circled him, Jack noticed something strange. The artifact, still clutched in his hand, began to glow faintly, pulsing faster whenever the creature drew near. An idea sparked in his mind. "This thing reacts to energy," he muttered. "Maybe it can do more than just glow." With no other options, Jack gripped the artifact tightly and focused on the creature. He had no idea how to activate it, but desperation had a way of unlocking potential. As the creature lunged again, Jack thrust the artifact forward, willing it to do something. To his shock, the artifact released a burst of energy that struck the creature midair. The beast let out a deafening roar as it was flung backward, crashing into one of the jagged rocks. It struggled to its feet, shaking off the blow, but Jack could see that it was injured. "Okay," Jack said, panting. "I can work with this." The creature charged again, but this time Jack was ready. He dodged to the side, using the artifact to deliver another blast of energy. Each pulse grew stronger, and with each strike, the creature weakened. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the beast collapsed, its glowing eyes dimming as it dissolved into the ground. The silence returned, broken only by Jack's ragged breathing. He dropped to his knees, the artifact still warm in his hand. "Well done," Xelira's voice echoed. "You have proven your courage, but the trials are far from over." Jack groaned. Of course they're not. The landscape shifted again, the jagged rocks melting into a lush forest filled with towering trees and glowing flora. Jack rose to his feet, bracing himself for whatever came next. If the first trial was courage, he had a sinking feeling the next one would be even worse. As he ventured deeper into the forest, a new voice whispered in his mind, soft, almost mournful. "Will you choose to protect or destroy?" Jack stopped, his brow furrowing. Protect or destroy. What does that even mean? Ahead, the path split into two. On one side, he saw a small, frightened alien creature trapped beneath a fallen tree, its cries weak but desperate. On the other side, a looming shadow approached, a larger, more dangerous predator. Jack's gut twisted. He could either save the small creature and risk being attacked by the predator, or protect himself and leave the creature to its fate. The second trial had begun. Uncovering the deception, Jack stood in the eerie silence of the forest, his breath catching as the predator advanced. Its sleek, obsidian form slithered with a strange grace, glowing red eyes fixed on him. Behind it, the smaller alien creature trembled, its fragile cries echoing through the dense trees. Protect or destroy. The voice whispered again, sending a chill down Jack's spine. He clenched the glowing artifact in his hand, its warmth pulsing against his palm as if urging him forward. But forward meant danger, danger he wasn't sure he could handle. His thoughts raced. He was no hero, no warrior, just a man thrown into a situation he barely understood. And yet, he couldn't ignore the desperate look in the small creature's eyes. "All right, you oversized nightmare," Jack muttered under his breath. "Let's see what you've got." Without hesitation, Jack stepped between the predator and its prey. The predator hissed, its movements becoming more erratic, more aggressive. Jack could feel his heart pounding in his ears as he raised the artifact. It glowed brighter, responding to his determination. The predator lunged, and Jack barely managed to sidestep, the force of its attack tearing through the ground where he had stood. He swung the artifact instinctively, sending out a wave of energy that struck the creature square in the chest. It stumbled back, but its glowing eyes only burned brighter. "Yeah, I figured that wouldn't be enough," Jack muttered, circling the predator. The smaller creature whimpered, its tiny form struggling to free itself from the fallen tree. Jack knew he was running out of time. He needed to end this quickly. Gritting his teeth, he raised the artifact again, focusing on the predator. He didn't just want to hit it. He wanted to stop it for good. The artifact pulsed in response, its light intensifying. Jack felt a surge of energy flow through him, unlike anything he'd felt before. When the predator lunged again, he unleashed a blast of energy that enveloped the creature entirely. It let out a deafening roar before disintegrating into a cloud of black ash. Jack stood there, panting, the artifact's light dimming once more. The forest grew quiet, save for the soft cries of the small creature behind him. He turned and quickly lifted the fallen tree, freeing the little alien. It looked up at him with wide, grateful eyes before scurrying off into the glowing underbrush. "Well," Jack said, wiping sweat from his brow, "that wasn't so bad." But as he caught his breath, the world around him began to shift again. The forest dissolved into streaks of light, and Jack found himself back in the grand ceremonial chamber. The Xentherian crowd was silent, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Xelira stepped forward, her expression calm, but her gaze piercing. "You have proven your courage and your compassion," she said. "But the trials are not yet over." Jack groaned. "What else could you possibly throw at me?" As if in answer, the platform beneath him shifted, revealing a hidden compartment. From it rose a massive, ancient tome, its pages glowing faintly with the same energy as the artifact. The crowd let out a collective gasp, their melodic voices rising in an anxious hum. "What is this?" Jack asked, stepping closer to the tome. "The Book of Prophecy," Xelira said. "It holds the truth of our people's past, and your role in our future." Jack hesitated, then opened the book. The pages seemed to come alive, images and symbols swirling across them in a chaotic dance. As he flipped through, a sense of unease settled over him. The symbols began to take shape, forming scenes that played out like holograms above the book. He saw Xentherians waging war against another alien race, their once grand cities reduced to ruins. He saw the artifact being created, its energy forged from something dark and volatile. And he saw a human, someone who looked eerily like himself, standing at the center of it all. "This doesn't make sense," Jack said, shaking his head. "How could I be part of this? This prophecy, this artifact. It's ancient. I wasn't even born when this started." Zelira's expression faltered for the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. "The prophecy does not speak of time as you understand it. It speaks of cycles, of events repeating until the balance is restored." "Cycles?" Jack echoed, his stomach sinking. "So I'm just some pawn in a loop you can't break." Zelira stepped closer, her tone softening. "You are more than a pawn, Jack. You are a chance. A rare, precious chance to change the course of history. But to do so, you must trust in the prophecy." Jack looked back at the book, his mind racing. The more he read, the more it became clear that the artifact wasn't just a symbol of hope. It was a weapon, one capable of immense destruction if used incorrectly. And the prophecy wasn't about uniting two peoples. It was about control. "You've been lying to me," Jack said, his voice low but steady. "This isn't about peace, is it? This is about power." The crowd erupted into murmurs, their melodic hums turning discordant. Zelira's calm facade cracked, her expression hardening. "You misunderstand. The artifact's power must be used to secure our survival." "At what cost?" Jack shot back. "You're not asking me to unite anyone. You're asking me to pick a side. To use this thing to destroy your enemies." The tension in the chamber was palpable. Jack felt the weight of thousands of eyes on him, but he refused to back down. He stepped off the platform, clutching the artifact tightly. "I don't know what's going on here," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "But I'm not going to be part of something that destroys innocent lives. If you want me to help, you're going to have to tell me the truth. All of it." The crowd fell silent, their glowing eyes turning to Zelira. For the first time, she looked uncertain, her gaze flickering between Jack and the artifact in his hand. The ceremony was far from over, but Jack had just shifted the balance of power, and there was no turning back. The ceremony interrupted. The tension in the chamber was palpable. Jack stood at the base of the platform, clutching the glowing artifact tightly in his hands. Thousands of Xentherian eyes bore into him, their previously melodic murmurs replaced by uneasy whispers. Zelira, standing on the platform above him, had lost the serene composure she had displayed since his arrival. Her expression was unreadable, but the faint tremble in her voice betrayed her frustration. "You do not understand the stakes," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Our people face extinction. The artifact is not just a tool, it is our salvation." Jack shook his head. "If salvation means wiping out another species, then maybe the stakes need to change." The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, swelling into a discordant hum that echoed through the chamber. Jack felt the weight of their collective disapproval pressing against him, but he held his ground. Before Zelira could respond, a deafening boom reverberated through the chamber. The glowing walls flickered, and the steady hum of the Xentherian ship's systems faltered. Panic rippled through the crowd as they turned toward the source of the sound, the enormous ornate doors at the far end of the chamber. The doors burst open with a thunderous crash, revealing a group of armored figures silhouetted against the dim light of the hallway beyond. Their armor was sleek and jagged, adorned with pulsating red energy that seemed to pulse in time with their steps. At their head was a figure taller than the rest, wielding a staff that radiated dark, crackling energy. "The Valeth," Zelira whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos erupting around them. Her expression hardened as she turned to the elders gathered at the edges of the platform. "They have found us." The armored figures strode into the chamber with calculated precision, their leader raising his staff. The energy within the artifact in Jack's hands began to hum violently, reacting to the presence of the invaders. "People of Xenthia," the leader's voice boomed, amplified by the staff's power. "You cling to your ancient lies and prophecies, but your time is over. Surrender the artifact, and we may spare some of you." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Jack looked to Zelira, expecting her to retaliate, but her gaze remained fixed on the leader of the Valeth. Her calm was unnerving, as though she had expected this confrontation all along. "Jack," Xelira said, her voice cutting through the quiet, "this is why we need the artifact. Without it, the Valeth will annihilate us." Jack hesitated, his grip tightening on the artifact. He could feel its power vibrating through him, a restless energy that begged to be unleashed. But he couldn't shake the unease growing in his chest. Xelira's desperation and the Valeth's ruthlessness made one thing clear. This wasn't a simple war of survival. It was a power struggle, and he was caught in the middle. "Don't listen to her, human," the Valeth leader said, stepping forward. "The Xentharians seek to use you as a pawn. That artifact holds enough power to destroy worlds. Do you want that blood on your hands?" Jack glared at the leader. "And you're any better? You just barged in here threatening to kill everyone." The leader smirked. "Sometimes destruction is necessary for balance. That artifact doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the universe. Hand it over, and we can ensure it is never used again." Jack's mind raced. He looked between Xelira and the Valeth leader, his instincts screaming that neither of them was telling the whole truth. The artifact pulsed in his hands, its energy growing stronger, as if sensing his indecision. Before Jack could make a decision, chaos erupted. The Valeth soldiers raised their weapons, and beams of crackling red energy shot toward the platform. Xentharian guards surged forward, shields of shimmering light materializing around them. The crowd scattered, their once orderly rows dissolving into a frenzied mass of glowing robes. "Jack, get to safety," Xelira shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony. But Jack didn't move. His instincts told him that running wouldn't solve anything. The artifact's energy was building rapidly, its light growing blindingly bright. He could feel it pulling him, urging him to act. "Enough," Jack roared, holding the artifact above his head. The chamber fell silent as the artifact released a burst of energy that rippled through the room, freezing everyone in place. The Xentharians and Valeth soldiers alike were caught mid-motion, their weapons suspended in the air. Jack felt the artifact's energy course through him, filling him with a strange clarity. He turned to Xelira, who stared at him with a mixture of awe and fear. "This isn't a weapon," Jack said, his voice steady. "It's something more, and it's not meant for any one side." The Valeth leader's voice cut through the stillness. "You don't know what you're dealing with, human. That power will consume you." "Maybe," Jack said, turning to face him. "But it won't be used for destruction. Not today." Before anyone could react, Jack focused on the artifact, willing it to absorb the energy in the room. The glowing beams of light, the crackling weapons, even the tension in the air, all of it flowed into the artifact, leaving the chamber in a profound silence. Jack lowered the artifact, his chest heaving. The crowd stared at him in stunned silence, their awe palpable. "This ends now," Jack said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "No more prophecies, no more wars. If you want to survive, you're going to have to find a way to work together." Xelira stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "You've proven yourself, Jack Carter, but the final choice is still yours." Jack looked down at the artifact, its light now a steady, calming glow. The weight of his decision pressed on him, but he knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about the Xentharians or the Valeth. It was about doing what was right, no matter the cost. A groom's sacrifice. The artifact pulsed gently in Jack's hands, its once bright glow now reduced to a soft, steady light. The tension in the grand chamber had shifted, where moments before it had been filled with the chaos of battle and conflicting ideologies. Now there was only silence, a fragile pause as everyone awaited Jack's next move. Xelira stood before him, her luminous eyes filled with a mixture of hope and hesitation. Behind her, the Xentharian elders watched intently, their glowing robes a stark contrast to the battered remains of the ceremonial hall. On the other side of the room, the Valeth leader and his soldiers remained still, their weapons lowered but not abandoned. The air was thick with anticipation, "You've proven yourself," Zalira said softly, stepping closer to Jack. Her voice was calm, but the weight of her words was undeniable. "The artifact has accepted you. It has recognized your strength, your courage, and your compassion. Now, it is time to fulfill your role in the prophecy." Jack sighed, his grip tightening on the artifact. "And what exactly is that role?" "To unite your people, to destroy the Vailith, to become your husband." The last word came out awkwardly, but it needed to be said. Zalira's expression faltered for a moment. "The union between us is symbolic," she admitted, her voice lowering so only Jack could hear. "It is meant to show the galaxy that peace is possible, that even the most unlikely of alliances can endure." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Symbolic. So I'm just a figurehead in all this?" She shook her head. "No, your actions have already proven that you are much more than that. But the ceremony, the bond, it is what will solidify everything we fought for. Without it, the prophecy remains unfulfilled, and the cycle of conflict will continue." Before Jack could respond, the Vailith leader stepped forward, his booming voice cutting through the quiet. "Do not let her manipulate you, human. The artifact is a weapon, nothing more. If you truly wish for peace, destroy it, end its influence once and for all." Jack looked down at the artifact, its swirling energy reflecting his conflicted emotions. He could feel the power within it, a power capable of reshaping worlds, of saving lives or destroying them. The Vailith leader's words echoed in his mind, but so did Zalira's. Both sides wanted the artifact, but for vastly different reasons. And Jack? He just wanted to do the right thing. He turned to face the crowd, his voice firm and steady. "This artifact is not a weapon. It's not a tool for war or domination. It's a symbol of hope, of possibility. But as long as you see it as something to be controlled, you'll never break the cycle of violence." The crowd murmured, their voices rising in a mix of agreement and skepticism. Jack raised the artifact above his head, its light flaring in response to his conviction. "I won't destroy it," he continued, "but I won't let it be used as a tool for destruction either. If this artifact is supposed to unite your people, then it will be under one condition. Both sides must agree to peace. No more lies, no more manipulation. Just peace." The silence that followed was deafening. Zalira and the Vailith leader exchanged tense glances, their postures rigid with the weight of Jack's demand. Slowly, Zalira stepped forward, her expression softening. "You ask for much, human," she said, her voice laced with a faint sadness. "Peace is not so easily achieved." Jack met her gaze. "Maybe not, but it has to start somewhere." To everyone's surprise, the Vailith leader spoke next. "And if we agree, what then? Will you truly step aside, or will you use that artifact to enforce your will upon us?" Jack hesitated, the weight of the question pressing down on him. The truth was, he didn't know what would happen next. But he knew one thing. He wasn't the kind of person to wield absolute power, no matter how tempting it might be. "I'll leave," he said finally, his voice resolute. "I'll take the artifact far away, where no one can use it. It doesn't belong to me, to Xenthia, or to the Vailith. It belongs to everyone, and no one." The chamber erupted into whispers, the gathered crowd struggling to process Jack's words. Zalira's expression hardened, her gaze flickering between Jack and the artifact. "And what of the prophecy?" she asked. "If you leave, it will remain incomplete." Jack smiled faintly, his grip on the artifact firm. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not about fulfilling some ancient prophecy. Maybe it's about breaking the cycle and starting something new." Zalira stared at him for a long moment, her glowing eyes searching his face. Finally, she nodded, a faint smile playing at her lips. "Perhaps you are right, Jack Carter. Perhaps it is time for a new path." The Vailith leader inclined his head reluctantly. "If the artifact is no longer a threat, we have no reason to continue this war." Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him, but it was short-lived. The artifact in his hands began to glow brighter, its energy building rapidly. He looked down in alarm as the symbols on its surface rearranged themselves, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with light. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice rising in panic. Zalira's eyes widened. "The artifact. It's responding to your choice." Before Jack could react, the artifact released a blinding burst of light that engulfed the chamber. He felt a surge of energy course through him, filling him with a strange mix of warmth and sorrow. When the light faded, he found himself standing alone in an empty field, the ceremonial chamber and its inhabitants gone. The artifact was gone, too, its energy now a faint echo in the back of his mind. Jack stared at the empty horizon, the weight of his decision settling heavily on his shoulders. He didn't know what had become of Zalira or the Valeth, but he hoped, prayed, that his actions had been enough to spark the change they all needed. For now, though, he was alone, a man caught between worlds, carrying the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, he had made the right choice.